All right, hey, thanks for stopping by and listening into this video. And I can assure you, probably, most likely, by the time you're done listening into this video, you're going to have stacked the deck in your favor in a bit of ways, especially as a beginner or maybe even intermediate, sales or business person, right? Starting out in sales or business, starting any kind of business, essentially, you're starting out in sales, right? But in general, maybe you're just starting out a sales job, right? Maybe starting out selling cars or appliances or homes or some kind of real estate or timeshare, an insurance product, right? Merchant accounts, right? Software. So there's, things that I'd say more residential, personal type things. Then there's more commercial type of things, right? So that could just depend on what you're trying to do. But overall, I think for a lot of salespeople, really in the beginning, it's just learning how to, get more presentations and do better presentations and how to ask for the order more, in the right way more often. But the first thing that I have a list here, Chat GPT giving me a list of 20 things, right? 20 general sales concepts. And as a pretty experienced salesperson, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and give my extrapolation on them, right? So the first one is building rapport. Building rapport, obviously, I think that comes in, I think for most salespeople, anything you read about sales literature, it talks about this one thing, right? Building rapport, right? And I think it's a pretty classically, taught thing, and, from going back to the 50s or whatever, right? In sales books that were actually pretty time tested and will show you a lot of the same stuff that they show today in many sales trainings courses. And I've read a few books, by Zig Ziglar, maybe some of Tom Hopkins, Og Mandino or Dale Carnegie, or what do you say? Dale Carnegie is another one. Dale Ernest Nightingale, if I'm correct. And certainly learned from a number of other greats, right? Jim Rohn. So, but, and there's just a few, more commonly known authors and people with business backgrounds and success. But there's certainly a lot of day-to-day people you can meet just at any kind of job you might have been at. Maybe there's a top rep there that did really good, right? And then you can learn a lot from them. A lot of times that can be more situational. It's not something that is written in a book somewhere, but rather you worked at a car dealership where somebody just had some certain niche or just some certain way of doing things that was super effective, right? So, you follow along with that, learn from that. But, building rapport, like you say, it's just about, establishing conversation with your prospect. This is, like I said, something that's been taught for a long time, but in my opinion, a little bit sometimes overrated. Right now, I don't mean like you shouldn't obviously connect with or have conversation and build conversation with your prospect, but sometimes I think salespeople read that wrong. They can get the idea that means that they need to, you want to ask questions, during a sales interview or presentation. Maybe you might want to ask questions, right, to get your prospect thinking about a hypothetical situation or asking a closing question or, trying to smoke out an objection or something like that or get more information, about their needs, etc. But you don't want to ask too many questions that might be perceived as nosy, right? You don't want to be too nosy, because it's totally up to the prospect to volunteer information to you about, their what they want, what they have available as far as resources, money, etc. So you don't want to come across as nosy, right? And one thing we want to do is volunteer a little bit of information about ourselves, but not like in a way that's coming across as if they care. Right? You don't want to talk too much about ourselves, right? Or maybe the wrong things about ourselves, right? But rather just a little bit of maybe vulnerability about ourselves, or maybe a little bit of better background or experience, or something like that, right? Or maybe a little bit about our family life, or I grew up in a pretty small family, and I lived here in such and such state most of my life, or give them a little bit of insight into who you are. Right, so they can feel like you're opening up to them. Right, it's not so much about having an ulterior motive; it's about just having a natural conversation. Right, but yeah, that's allowing them to also do the same thing, maybe more often. Right, to reciprocate more information about themselves. So it's building rapport, right? Building trust, breaking down trust barriers, right? Being clear about communication and any hidden things that might be in the background of your proposal, right? So that way they feel like they know when the other foot's, they already know what the other shoe is that's going to drop, right? So sorry, I have birds. They like to hang out here when maybe I do a video or something like that. But so like you said, building rapport, building trust, giving something about yourself without being too overbearing, asking some questions that are relevant or a subtle question that might, say, are you all from? Have you been here in this? Have you all from here? Or are you in this? Have you been in this town for a long time? Or like not too nosy, but maybe just getting a little bit of an idea that you want to learn about them. You want to kind of know about them in a friendly way, right? So, but also could pertain to what you're showing them. Do you all have what kind of car you've been driving, or what how do you like the car you're in, or something like that, right? And that goes to listening, right? So anyway, building rapport, giving them trust points, like I said, tell them a little about your family or something like that. I have a couple of sisters that went to such and such school, or it just gives them, maybe not to get too specific, maybe you're talking to a stranger and saying to tell them all your personal information or something, but you get the idea, right? Maybe, hopefully. So it's just a quick general idea on the concepts of building rapport and establishing friendly conversation where people aren't turned off by the conversation or rubbed the wrong way, right? So this is the tip number one: build a rapport, right? The second tip, right, understanding the prospect's needs, right? And that kind of can go a little bit into understanding the prospect's needs, identifying the market, asking some questions that are pertinent potentially, or so is it do you have dependents, or is it just the two of you all? You're asking your prospect some questions that could give you some insight, not trying to not be too personal, right? It rubs them the wrong way, but to maybe get some information. And so this is just to help, understand what they might be looking for, what they like, right? What do they like about their current product or service that they might use, right? What do they like or dislike about it? What do they like or dislike about their current situation, right? So that just goes back into listening again. Once again, understanding your prospects' goals, right? What they would like to get out of the situation, what their expectations might be. Someone walks onto your car lot, are they looking for a truck, or are they looking for, what are they not going for? Definitely want to avoid, right? So you're not showing them some car that they just definitely have no interest in or something, right? That you're kind of you're reading the room, you're reading the prospect a little bit, right? So understanding the prospect's needs, right? So that's number two. And number three, asking open-ended questions, right? So asking open-ended questions allow the prospect to talk about their needs more. Maybe repeat something back to them. Maybe they say, oh, well, this is not the right time for us to get involved. Not the right time, right? Or we can't afford the way you can't afford it, or something, just kind of repeating something back to them to allow them to expound on it, right? You're basically inciting them to elaborate or give you a little bit more detail about their question or objection, right? So asking open-ended questions could it can mean like say if you were to do such and such, how would you prefer to have such and such? Hypothetical types of questions, right? Questions to get your prospect to think, right? So that's really just enough about that. It's not like, you want to talk with your prospect, but you don't want to talk too much in a sales situation necessarily. And that kind of goes with showing and not so much telling, right? Educate your prospect, yeah, but at the same time, you want to get some agreement. You want them to wow factor. Oh, wow, okay, I see what that does, right? Oh, okay, I see why that's a good. Oh, wow, so it does that. Oh, okay, and you're telling them about a feature or showing them a feature, right? Maybe something you have to tell them about as an insurance product. You don't just demonstrate it. You have to give them, an experience, a testimonial, right? So asking open-ended questions, right? Active listening. Paying attention to the things that your prospect says, when you're talking to them. Like I said, they may, tell you something about their background, where they went to school, what family, or something like that, to give you a sense of, what their needs are. So active listening, pay attention to what your prospect is saying, not only helps you in understanding their needs, but also shows that you value their input. That's another thing. Acknowledgement, right? Acknowledgement when somebody gives you an objection or raises a concern. You don't want to just ignore it. Right. Sometimes it might go for ignoring it. It depends on whether this is a real objection or is it a fake objection. Right. That's another thing we want to identify better. Right. Is someone giving us a real objection, or is it just a bogus objection? Maybe they say they can't afford it, but they're living in a $500,000 house. That's not the real objection. real objection is something else, right? So that's an example, right? So active listening. Now, using storytelling, number 5, right? Storytelling. This means go back to the testimonials, just basically, giving people examples of others or maybe you yourself being in a situation where you discovered the problems with not having your product or service, right? You discovered not about using fear, but rather just, raising awareness of why other people got your product or service. So what made you look closer at the product or service when you first started? So giving a little bit of a specific couple of examples. My friend Dennis, he was married for 3 years and they were using this certain kind of vacuum or he had a washing machine that just didn't work very well, and his wife always yelled at him. As soon as they got the new washing machine, she stopped yelling at him. Right? So that went wait a minute. We have been having some argument. Maybe this would solve that problem. It sounds like a little ridiculous, but you never know. That might actually be a solution, right? So it's just an example of a testimonial story. Gives people a little bit of an idea of, the problems they face that they don't realize that they might be facing without your solution, without the product or service that you're offering, right? So using storytelling and testimonials, right? And, dropping names of other people that have used your product or service with their permission, of course, using storytelling. And that goes to the next one here. So 6, leverage social proof, right? Leverage social proof, right? So like, if you're canvassing a neighborhood to share a home improvement product or service or something like that, that's a good time to say, hey, your neighbor Wendy and Tom, they hadn't insulated their home for a long time. They found that they were getting, really high electric bills. And so we came back and we were able to help them with taking advantage of an incentive we had while we're in the area. We're helping a few of your neighbors, and we thought we'd pop by real quick and maybe we could, see exactly what's going on, and maybe we could, how much insulation do you have in the home? Maybe you sell an insulation or some other home improvement or something like that. You're setting appointments for an estimate, window replacement or something like that, right? So, the idea is to give them some social proof that you're doing the neighbor's house already. You already have 300 customers in this county or whatever it is. You have some testimonials on your website of other people. You have some videos of some other people that have, been involved with your product, service, or training program or whatever it is that can give the testimonials, right? Personal, and then the social proof, right? Social proof. And highlight testimonials, reviews, or case studies show how others have benefited from your product or service. Social proof builds more trust, right? More definitely something that works. This idea, this proposal, this service or product that is being shown to this prospect, right? So number 7, handle objections early, right? Handle objections early, right? Anticipate common objections, price, etc. Proactively during your presentation, be prepared with solutions. If handling objections early, can oftentimes go into making certain statements throughout your presentation, right, that could maybe overcome or cancel out the raising of some objection, right? Making a statement, handling objections early, identifying what objections your prospect might likely bring up, and saying things that overcome the objection before it comes up, right? There's something else I was thinking about as far as that goes too. Handling objections early, smoking out the real objection, right? Smoking out a real objection, identifying if an objection is authentic or not, and sometimes that comes down to isolating an objection, right? Isolating an objection early on. Other than that, or is there any other reason that you wouldn't want to get involved in this product or service, right? So maybe asking a hypothetical question that says, if you did like the product and was affordable, would you have gotten started with it today? Would you have taken one home with you today? Could we welcome you to the such and such family today? You're asking a closing question, but that's meant to draw out any other objections they might have, even subtly, right? It might be a subtle thing. So, you think you would use it if you had it, or, I bet if if it was affordable, you probably would have had one of these things by now, huh? So, I definitely would have. Kind of getting an idea if, they have any other objections possibly. No, I have a bad back, so I probably wouldn't use it that much, or some other objection they might be planning on giving you, right? So those are just a few examples. You probably think of more to expound on that, but this is just one video. This is just one session, right? Like I said, the idea is to stack the deck in your favor for a few main things, and just kind of throwing them in with a few additional details, right? Handle objections early. And 8 was another really big deal, right? Creating urgency, right? Urgency and reasons why you're asking for the order. Reasons why you need to have 2 presentations today or 5 or whatever your goal is for the day. And you need to have business today, not tomorrow or next week or next month or when they call you back and all that. But rather you're closing the sale today. And that goes into urgency. Use scarcity, right? There's a couple things we're using right here is use scarcity and time-sensitive offers, right? Like, that's another thing if you're doing a home improvement. You say, hey, in the area, kind of already had 5 other jobs in the area, and we're setting up, your neighbors, Wendy and Tom, took advantage of Maria and, Mario or 2, whatever. Maybe that's not the best example, same name basically, but, they're both getting their windows done or whatever it is, right? They're using some social proof, right? You're using urgency because you're in the area at that short amount of time. You're taking 10% off because we already have 4 other customers or whatever other reasons or extra incentives. And they're not too big of an extra incentive that's like, you're laying it all on the ground, but it's a little extra incentive to take action now instead of later. You'd be surprised what people will do to save $25 on a $1,000 transaction, right? They'll get you cash for it. They'll, buy it today instead of tomorrow, stuff like that. It depends. As long as they're kind of pretty firm about their decision, right? So creating urgency using scarcity, time sensitivity, hey, look, I have to have, 3 presentations for the end of the day. My manager told me I had to do, if you hold on, I'll be right back to my equipment, or you have a few minutes, we tell you all about it, or, I only have to do one more, just to get another presentation out of the way. I'm doing a big contest this month, and I have to, I'm trying to be the #1 rep, and really I have to do 60 of these overviews for the month, and, I have to do 60 test drives with. So really, it may or may not be the car for you, honestly, but, we take it for a spin around the block, we grab a bite, and, we come back and, then you maybe end up taking that prospect to the table. Showing them some number. Maybe you end up buying the car you didn't think they would buy, or they didn't think they would buy, right? Because you did take them for the test drive that they just weren't considering until you said, hey, well, to be honest, you take the pressure off. You take the pressure off, right? Take the pressure off about buying, but rather just, you're not emotionally attached to the sale. You're just going through the motions of the presentation kind of real quick. You're kind of following through. It's not like you're doing it too quick, too hasty, but you're kind of test closing in that process, right? You're finding out where they stand. But doing this kind of shorter, less talking approach to selling allows you to kind of build a silent urgency, a subtle enthusiasm, right? It builds a synergy, right? When you do one presentation after another and after another, you're following through with each one. You're asking the closing questions, at least 3 or 6 times with new information between each one whenever possible to provide reasons to ask for the order again, right? So these are, the basics in going to ask for the order to close with a sense of urgency and enthusiasm, but no emotional attachment to the sale. If they say no, you're not going to get all upset about it. You're gonna think positive. Okay, well, all right, no problem. You're gonna think, maybe there's just one other solution. I don't just bounce it off you. Kind of, like you can take no for an answer. Hey, look, and if you're totally absolutely can't do it, no problem at all. Just let me know. But otherwise, if you did like the benefit, you go ahead and set up. But if there's any way you can get the down payment down, if this is possible, I really don't know, right? Maybe get a commitment before a final commitment on your end. Hey, look, my manager wanted me to let them know how I'm doing today, and I've already got 10 of these sales this month, and I have a couple more. And you're saying that you like the product and everything, but you're just saying it's $200 too much for the down payment right now. Is why you can't get it right now. Is that, I can't guarantee anything, but hold on, let me just run it by my manager. Let me see what they say. Maybe there's just, maybe your manager can do some kind of extra little discount for them, or there's some reasons why that close could work, right? So, but building urgency, it's giving you a reason to ask for the order today. It's giving you a reason to ask for the presentation today, right? There's reasons why you're asking besides them being so interested per se in many cases, right? Depends on what it is. But creating urgency. Number 9, offer value before selling, right? And maybe that's just as simple as hoping to assess their situation with no expectation out of it. Maybe, like you said, maybe you're selling insulation and you need to assess the thickness of the insulation in their attic and give them an idea of what the typical expectation is. You're not trying to oversell, you're just giving them an educated, hey, look, your insulation is pretty thin, only 4 inches, and it's supposed to be at least 8 inches according to the law here in the new standards of construction, and aside from that, really honestly, the thing is it'll probably cut your electric bill by at least 20 or 30%. But here, look, as a matter of fact, we just did it for the neighbors here a couple months ago, and they said their electric bills already, Wendy and Tom next door. Yeah, they actually did it just a couple months ago, and they really loved the results. And in fact, they said their electric bills already 20 or 30% lower. Or, you have some other way to drop a name or some social proof or some testimonials. Right, it's going to show you an immediate value point. You can say, okay, well, bottom line, if I spend this money, this is actually going to save me more money than I'm spending. Right, you make a more objective decision that I need to do this. I need to take action. Right, so offer value before selling, like you said, assessing their situation as something, simple. Not fad, not just giving them a lollipop and just, like gimmicks, like be cautious with gimmicks, right? It's okay to offer a little insight to your prospect, but do it in the right way, right? Number 10, simplify the offer, right? Simplify the offer. In this case, make the offer clear. This is another thing I always say, as a matter of fact, is clarifying your offer, right? Clarifying the numbers to your offer, the down payment, the monthly payment, the total overall price after all expenditure is built in, and clarifying that. And they feel like you're shooting them straight, you're telling them everything up front, you're clarifying what they would be saying yes to, which will make it easier for them to possibly say yes, right? So clarity, right? It says make the offer clear and easy to understand. Write it down in paper in front of them, right? So they can clarify and understand exactly what it costs to take advantage of your product or service, right? So avoid overwhelming the prospect with too many details or complicated terms, right? And too many choices, right? Too many different things to choose from. Just take one simple directive or step at a time, if that makes sense, right? One offer at a time, or maybe just two offers, an alternate choice type of thing, but not too many choices. Oh, I can't decide, right? So simplify the offer, right? Number 11, use the assumptive close, right? Act as if the prospect already decided to use your, so where would you like, what address would you like it delivered to, right? Or what method of payment would you like to use for the initial payment? Or what date would you like the first monthly installment to begin? Which date between the 10th and the 15th of the month, which date would you prefer? And that maybe there's some kind of choice that they can make that implies that they are definitely buying, and you're just subtle. It's a casual thing. It's not like a high pressure thing, but it's like, so which one would you prefer, the red one or the black one? The black one, okay, great. Well, welcome to the family, right? The Sheffy family, whatever it is. So, you get the idea. It's just to welcome your prospect aboard, closing the deal, essentially, right? With the subtle, you didn't even actually ask for the order itself. Right, you ask them to confirm a buying decision, something that automatically implies that they are buying. Assume the sale, alternative choice, right? Put your hand out, offer to welcome to your family of your business, right? As a member, a customer, a user, right? Or, even a new employee or a team member, because recruiting is a form of selling, right? So, using the assumptive close. Number 12, follow the 80-20 rule. And it means what they talk about 80-20 in terms of listening 80% of the time, talking about 20% of the time, right? So 80-20 rule, and this could apply to different things. We call it maybe a Pareto principle, if you will, normally. But in this case, we're talking about applying it to the concept of selling and communicating with your prospect. Do more listening. Let the prospect do 80% of the talking, if you will, right? So let them give you information, and let them have chances to give you information. A lot of salespeople go in and they start talking and telling all about their product and start laying out all the facts and all this and that, but then they never really listen to their prospect telling them some maybe obvious reason why maybe this is no deal, but they never give them a chance to speak and explain something, or some obvious condition that you really just want to waste any more time with, or maybe they're explaining some way in which they could afford to get your product or service that they might back out of later. But if you just let them speak a little bit more during the presentation, maybe they'll give us some important information, right? So letting your prospect speak, not talking too much, like I said, showing, demonstrating, presenting, giving them the clear hot button benefits of your product or service, something that they can agree to, using some sales taglines and say, wouldn't you would use that if you had it, wouldn't you? If it was affordable, you would have gotten one, wouldn't you? Right, stuff like that. That gets agreement from your prospect. Called tag-ons at the end of a sentence to see if they agree with you, If they don't, then hey, you need to maybe do more value building, right? Value building. So number 13 is personalize your offer, right? Customize a solution based on the prospect has shared. So especially with something like, an insurance product, maybe they need a certain type of policy, right? You want to make sure you get them what they need, right? Or maybe there is something unique about that one automobile you have in the back that fits that one prospect. It has an M on the door and the guy's name is Michael or something, and it's just something that's kind of more personal touch for that one product. Hey, look, I'll tell you what, I don't really have a lot of these, but we have 2 more of these ones that came in here, and I think you might like this one here. Let me just show you. You can see what you think. And go show them something, a little private stash of whatever, put this extra little incentive. Hey, look, I was going to throw in extra bags with this one here just because it's the last one I have for the day, and, fortunately the timing worked out. I can go ahead and throw in this extra incentive or to take action now, right? So instead of later, right? So extra incentives, right? So personalize the offer, right? So tailoring the benefits to their specific situation may make your offer more compelling, right? 14, stay confident. Confidence in yourself and your product. What this means, in my opinion, is just not getting offended by the words no, right? Your prospect might turn down, might give you some objection or some concern, right? You exude confidence. Don't get too defensive, right? You're too defensive trying to sell your product. Oh, this is so great because it's such, that other product is really crap. Instead of putting down what they're using or what they've used in the past or what they think is good, say, oh, well, that's good. This is just that much better, right? So you're not criticizing any of their past decisions. This is another big deal in sales, right? A lot of times a person will be telling me, hey, I used to drive a whatever car, and then the salesperson, oh, those are pieces of junk. This car over here is built so much better, and whatever. And then all of a sudden the person's feeling like, you know what? That's pretty offensive for one thing, right? Another thing they're thinking is, I made a bad decision by rushing into that. Maybe I don't want to do that again. I don't want to rush into this decision, right? Then you're making me feel bad, obligated, like I need to buy this new car all of a sudden because I'm driving such a piece of crap, or I have such bad judgment, or you feel like I'm inferior, I'm stupid because I was driving that car or using that product or service, right? So we don't want to criticize what they did and make it sound like it was good. It's just that this is that much better, and maybe that's really the case, right? It's not like because they had something that was inferior to yours, in your opinion, doesn't mean it was a total piece of junk. It just wasn't nearly as good as what you have. This is just that much better, right? So, not criticizing, stay confident, right? You're not having to be insecure and defending yourself too much. You exude confidence. You know that if they don't get it, you have someone else that's lining up, waiting up to see what you got, right? Hey, no, all right, no problem. I gotta go. I gotta run. It's kind of like you're testing the water. You're asking for the close. You're trying to follow through. You're doing the presentation. You're asking closing questions, getting yes questions, something like that. But you see some resistance. You're kind of taking it away a little bit. Oh, okay, all right. Well, I don't even know if this may or may not really be for you, to be honest. It doesn't really sound like you're really that keen on this. No, oh no, well no, I wanted to see what it's about. Maybe they. Or no, they tell you they're not. Hey, sometimes you have a dead prospect. Right? Maybe you go through the presentation a little quicker. You ask for the order a little quicker. You just realize where to spend your time most valuably. Getting complete presentations done, right? So that way you can have more opportunities to close, right? So staying confident. And the next one, 15, limiting choices, right? Limit choices. And that goes back to what I was saying about making things clear, one simple directive at a time. Not confusing your prospect, right? Offering too many options can overwhelm your prospect. Too many different decisions to think about. They feel like they need to research and think about it more, lead to indecision, right? So present 2 or no more than 3 strong options to choose from, if that makes sense. So limit choices, right? Number 16, right? Know your product inside and out. I'd say that's kind of subjective to a degree. Yeah, you want to be knowledgeable about your product. What depends on what you're selling. What kind of clients do you mostly have? Are your clients pretty analytical? Are you trying to sell a stock option? Are you trying to sell, a car? Are you trying to sell a burrito? You know what I mean? Like, do you need to know every single thing about your product? Not necessarily. You don't need to, it's good to know about it, but you don't need to act like you know every single thing about it every single time, right? You need to know the benefits of it, how it affected your life or that of another client, right? So, sometimes people do want to know what's the material of such and such made out of, or what temperature does it withstand, It's kind of hard to a lot of times assess that. Sometimes we get the data doesn't really match our personal experience with something, right? So you want to give people that personal experience. Hey, I trust me, I used it and it was safe when I used it around my animal or whatever it was. That not like that. That's necessarily somebody should just trust of testimonial. They should, But at the same time, if they can get some testimonial and some other experience, that helps them make their decision more comfortable, right? So knowing your product inside and out, right? So 17, using trial closes is another thing I was just talking about a few minutes ago. Test closes, right? Hypothetically, if it was such and such, would you have gotten one today? If the down payment was such and such, if I could get one in white, would you have, whatever the objection or thing that might be holding them back, or you might be asking a question to ask a hypothetical close, right? Or a trial or test close, right? A test close. And they ask you a question, does it come in white? Well, if it did come in white, would we go ahead and welcome you to the family? Would we be able to help? Would we be able to earn your business today? Right? Asking today, right? Not tomorrow. The next thing you want to close business today. You want to close the deal today, right? So, using trial and test closes throughout the conversation, ask for small commitments or agreements to gauge the prospect's readiness and to take a next step, right? And maybe it's just a close on a small step, right? A small next step, like doing the test drive with the vehicle. You need to close them on that idea. Maybe they're not really totally sure if they want to go to that. They're interested in the vehicle, they're curious about it, but they don't want to test drive it because they don't want to waste your time or lead you on or something like that, right? So that kind of goes into using a trial close, and we take it for a quick spin. And you drive it and you like it. Maybe we could see if it would be affordable for you to, or something. A test close, it's hypothetical, right? So anyway, just some examples of some test closing, hypothetical closes. If it had been under this such and such conditions, would you have been able to afford it with what you have available to you today? Something like that, right? So number 18, create win-win situations. Frame the deal as mutually beneficial. So this, in my opinion, kind of goes on to being on their side of the table, if you will. Like, you're trying to see it from their perspective. If you were the buyer, well, look at it. You have 5 kids here, and honestly, you don't have time to do all this yourself. You really kind of do need this equipment. And, from my perspective, I have 3 kids myself, and from before that, I was working 60 hours a week and then having to come home and do 2 hours of such and such. And now I'm able to save at least half that time every night. And it gives me more free time to play guitar or whatever else you like to do. Whatever, it's just an example of how it might actually affect their current life. You relate to something that they experience, right? Maybe having kids or whatever, something else, right? Or they are in some venture that you've had experience with, right? So, but creating a win-win situation, right? And just showing, hey, look, if I could go ahead and do such and such, maybe we can run your business today. It's calling in like a hypothetical close, right? With the idea you're going to offer some extra incentive to do business today to make it more of a unique win-win situation that not everybody else gets. You just happen to be in the right circumstances tonight. It just happened to be the last presentation for the day, and my boss just happened to talk to me earlier today, wanted me to let him know how I'm doing, and if you're gonna call them, let them know, hey, they really like this such and such, and they would get one today, but they just said the down payment was $100 too much, or something that's hypothetical. No, they would have gotten it today if it was $100 less, but right now it's the only thing. It's kind of like you're out, and you're saying, oh, well, okay, so what you're saying, no, right? Well, then you go back and show them some numbers that they might have already basically agreed to. Well, yeah, the down payment had been half that amount, we would have been able to go ahead and get started today, but I don't get paid till next week, so we can't, So it's some reason why they wouldn't have been able to get it today, but they would have been able to if it had met some certain conditions, right? So creating a win-win situation. Follow up promptly. And this is another big deal too with a lot of products and services. Many is building a pipeline, right? Building a pipeline. It's such like an insurance type of product, or maybe a merchant account type of thing, or something like that, where you're building a pipeline of prospects to follow up with. Sometimes they do need to have some more time to think about a proposal in some situations, right? Or they're going to take more time because it is a pretty big buying decision. Maybe you're dealing with some commercial entity, you're selling a business product, like some, a bunch of fax machines going to cost $30,000 or something like that, or fax machine, like copy machines or something like that. Get the idea. Some pretty expensive equipment. They're not necessarily just going to make a buying decision in 5 minutes or 30 minutes. They're going to do a couple price comparisons and whatever other things that might be a little hard to close those deals immediately. Sometimes they might need that kind of follow-up. But at the same time, you're really going for business today. So remember, closing business today means framing the presentation ahead of time. Hey, I'm in a big contest, and I have to, reasons why you're asking for the order today, right? At the end of your presentation, right? So, follow up promptly. The prospect doesn't make an immediate decision. Follow up to get their feedback. Give them an out too. This is another big thing with getting a response from your prospect when you're following. A lot of times we follow up with their prospect, they might be evading or ignoring us, right? So, you don't really know where they stand. You could be following up with them a lot and not getting any response or ignoring you, but they sounded like a hot prospect at one point. You need to find out where they stand. That means giving them an out. Say, hey, look, I was following up. I know that we had talked about such and such, and you were considering our product or service, but, man, is there anything that was holding you back? Or you might go ahead and say, if not for any reason at all, absolutely no problem at all. Just let me know. But otherwise, if you did like the benefits of such and such, or the advantages of having such and such, and and whatever, and we were able to reduce whatever to such and such amount, would we be able to welcome you to the such and such family? Right? You kind of creating a condition for them and a test close. But at the same time, you just gave them a reason why they, you gave them the opportunity to say no. And if they say no, hey, no problem. You kind of scratched them off your list for now. Maybe you say something like, hey, if not ready for that right now, absolutely no problem at all. Just let me know. Right? You say by that, maybe you can, doesn't mean you can't hit them up in maybe 6 or 12 months to invite them to take another look. Just checking back to see maybe you want to take another look at this thing. Or, I just popped by real quick for a quick demo, and, I happen to be in the area, and, you're following up with your prospect again, maybe a slightly different angle than previously. Maybe they don't even remember you. Depends on what you're doing. Maybe you were doing it over the phone, right? But if they do remember you, then, it's kind of like you're just touching base with them, see if they want to take another look. It's just a quick touch back, right? At the same time, you're not chasing them down. You're not beating them over the head. You're giving them space, right? But reminding them about your product and service. So that way, maybe later on, maybe 6 months from now, it's time for them to take advantage of your product or service. Maybe their car breaks down, whatever it is, right? You stayed in touch. You let them know that you weren't offended by their no, or they weren't ready right now, right? Response, right? So you kept them in the loop. You didn't burn a bridge, right? Don't burn a bridge. So follow up promptly. 20, the final one, right? So 20, right? So this is pretty basic, right? Pretty basic, but it is a very powerful one, right? Stay positive about the outcome, right? There's a few elements of this. Like one thing I was saying earlier is not getting emotionally attached to the results, right? Understanding that a no doesn't necessarily mean like absolute no. What it means is they need to know more. They don't know enough of the benefits and the reasons why they should take action on your product or service right now. They just don't know enough of the potential benefits. Maybe there's not enough benefits for them. Then you shouldn't be selling it to them, right? Ideally, theoretically. So but if they understand the benefits, if they know the benefits, then they can take action. They can make a comfortable decision. So, staying positive about the outcome, having a positive, kind of like The Secret. Right? You've ever heard of that book or movie or whatever? I never actually even watched or read it, but I think the general concept, is a kind of an idea of, kind of thoughts become things, if you will. And it kind of sounds ridiculous for a lot of people, probably. The idea that you can create your own reality in a sense, and maybe sometimes it's coincidence, right? I've had times where, and really a good number of times, so I'm probably in many ways a coincidence, but where I might have said, hey, you know what? I'm going to go knock on that door. I'm going to make that sale right now, full pop. And somehow it happened. But it's not like I did that every time. It's just a couple key times I did something like that where I called my own success. So the confidence was just there. I felt it. I felt I was in the zone somehow, right? Somehow called it out. Said, hey, I'm gonna make at least 10 of these this week. And sure enough, end up doing 10 of them, where I never really did that before, because I just all of a sudden had a new level of confidence about what I was doing. I've been experienced a little bit. I got my 10 presentations a few weeks in a row and realized, wait a minute, I need to start going through this a little bit quicker, a little more confident about this part. I need to do this a little bit sooner. I need to be more efficient, right? And urgency is a big factor, right? Taking massive action, right? That means saying less to more prospects, but also following through at the same time with each one, right? But Saying less to more prospect. I mean, saying less means it's showing, right? Showing, getting excited about your product or service, your urgency and enthusiasm about the solutions that it provides. Why you see as an exciting product or service for them because, wow, this is getting this floor pretty clean. Wow, I can really see the pickup difference between this one and the one you're using right now. Not that that's bad, but this, check out the engine in this thing, or something like that, right? So, just to give them, staying positive about the outcome means, like having an optimism that you're gonna get the deal. You're gonna not get somehow. I'm gonna get this 3 presentations for the day. Something's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Something positive gonna happen. Maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe the next day you get up with that same charge again. You have that positive attitude that allows you that opening, that door to open that otherwise you might have had a little bit of a negative attitude. It would have closed that same door, right? A lot of times people talk their way in and then right out of a sale by talking too much or too much information, right? So you don't want to talk our way in and out of the sale, right? You don't want to talk ourselves mentally in and out of the sale. Oh, this can't happen. This won't work. Oh, there's no way it could happen. Oh, there's no way I can make $1,000 today. How would I do that? Instead of thinking like that, thinking rather, well, maybe there is other people that are able to do that. What would they do? What do they do to do that? Who does that? How do they do that? How would it be possible to do that? Right? Somehow I'm gonna maybe do something like that. It's gonna happen. Right? Some positive thing, right? Like somebody trying to become a guitar player, they feel like I'm light years away from the best guitar player. How see somebody playing on the internet. Wow, like forget the guitar. I'll never be that good, right? But honestly, did they ever get that good with that attitude? They don't even get close with that attitude most of the 90% of the time, 95% of the time. But a lot of times, maybe at the same time, that might be the person that's insecure because they're that detailed. They're that much of a perfectionist. They might be actually pretty good or even better than that person they see on the internet. They say, wow, that person's doing so good, but they're insecure. So, we don't want to be that person either, right? So, you don't want to be so insecure. You want to be, confident that, your efforts are 90% of the battle. Your willpower is 90% of the battle. Maybe you're not the best talent, but your willpower represents 90% of the battle for most people, right? Most people don't have a special knack, right? I don't have any special knack, I don't feel like, right? Maybe I do in some sense compared to some other people in some ways. I have some advantages. A lot of people have told me that in some ways before. From my perspective, I grew up poor. I grew up as being, I've taken a bath in a 5-gallon bucket. I've slept in a ditch. I've lived in a teepee. I've done stuff, So I don't like, from my perspective, I ask them what their background. A lot of times they're like, telling me stuff that I'm like, okay, that's it. Now, that doesn't mean every situation. Sometimes people have been in worse situations where maybe some rich person had a great background, silver spoon, but all of a sudden they got cancer at an early age or something like that, right? So it's just because their life looks great on the outside doesn't necessarily mean it is, right? Same thing vice versa. Somebody might look like they're doing worse, but they're content. So, we can't judge personalities. We can't prejudge scenarios. We have to have the positive mindset about the best, think the best in people, right? Give people the benefit of the doubt, the opportunity to do the right thing, right? Not to paint them into a corner. Don't paint your prospect into a corner. Don't paint yourself into the corner. Keep an open mind. Help your prospect keep an open mind about trying your service, right? Anyway, this is just a few tips I'm going through. Like I say, maybe if you get something out of this, I certainly appreciate a like or a comment. And if anything you did get out of it that was a hot point for you, that you felt like, hey, wait a minute, I picked up on that. That's something I'm going to try, or that's something I didn't really think about before, I certainly welcome your comment. And certainly, maybe someone's watching, maybe has some other tips or ideas that, you felt like were most instrumental for you improving your results or getting more success in some business endeavor. Mainly a business endeavor in this case, because what this idea is about, right? Closing more sales. This is really the top 20 tips that Chat GPT. You wouldn't necessarily like I just picked out these top 20 tips. I probably had some other tips I might have picked and added in here. Like asking for the orders multiple times. saying less to more people, kind of knocking out more complete present, thinking more about presentations instead of sales, right? Because I would say it's probably more valuable to get 10 new complete presentations than it is to worry about that one prospect that you think told you they were going to buy last week and you're chasing them down. Hey, why is this person getting back with me? Right? That's another thing, like I said, go back to, right? Give your prospect an opportunity to say no, right? Let them know that, you can take a no for an answer. That way you're not wasting your time with that prospect. That prospect doesn't have to feel bad, and you save yourself some face and credibility for the future, not burning a bridge. So anyway, these are my concepts. I want to say thank you for listening if you got this far. It's certainly an honor and a privilege to have your viewership, and if you do get this far, I encourage you to maybe check out another video. I'm not like I have a whole bunch of real fancy videos on here, but they're just touching on general topics on this particular platform about business in this particular case. But I might have some other videos about some other topics as well. But certainly leave me a comment or a like, or even, maybe share with a friend if you think someone could get something out of it. And until next time, we'll see you then. Signing out. Bye-bye.